We're live.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you for saying that.
Okay. So let's mute.
Hey everyone, we'll get started in just a minute or so. I'm just gonna interrupt for 1 second. Lonnie and I are using the same account. So when she's trying to make the camera turn off, it turns mine off. So I turn it on. So Lonnie, your camera is showing. All right, everyone, I think I'm gonna get started. There are people still joining in, but I realize that, some classes, whether on campus or online, may still be happening. And so I don't wanna interrupt too much. I did wanna have an opportunity to discuss yesterday's announcements by the mayor and the governor. And because I realize that not many are able to necessarily join the Zoom meetings, I'm going to send out a message soon after the end of this meeting. But in effect, and the reason that I wanted to have this meeting is because we kind of got used to being together. And I kind of felt lonely in trying to interpret everything that's being shared. But at the end of the day, as of last week when we had convocation, and even prior to that, as we were getting more indications that this may be happening, we had already taken actions in moving in the direction of shifting more online or remote or remotely. And so we're just continuing to do that. If you were able to listen to the governor and the mayor speak yesterday, one of the bigger indicators for the University of Hawaii is that the governor has asked UH to remain operating more or less like the DOE, but to continue shifting things online. So like I shared during convocation, we have to contribute to the cause. And so what I'm asking is not necessarily that classes transition in perpetuity to online, but that if there are any services and or any classes that we can promote a little bit more online or do more online, at least for the next 2 weeks, so that we are part of the effort of flattening the curve, that we continue to do that. And I'm just gonna start by saying thank you to everyone, because when we started in this process whenever we started thinking about fall, we had a lot of classes that were face-to-face, and we have really made a dent in all of the classes that are meeting remotely. We still have quite a few that are meeting in some hybrid capacity. And what we're asking for, again, it's a 2-week period where if there's anything that we could upfront in a remote capacity, we should. As was shared in yesterday's press release and what has been shared all along for us, is that some hands-on classes have to still remain. But again, if there are things that we could shift a little bit so that we reduce the traffic of folks on campus for the next 14 days, it would really benefit us as a whole. And so we did have an open link for questions when we sent out the invitation yesterday. And there were some questions about, what can classes do? Well, for the most part, you've already done most of it. There is very little that we can do in a practical course where there's something like, a socket wrench. I mean, there's just not much that we could do in a remote capacity in some instances. So in those cases, that's why we have the exception, so that we could carry on. There are restrictions that we shared of before, the 5 people congregations. Again, we said that doesn't apply to UH as it relates to classes. But if people are congregating in a social capacity on campus, we're trying to, move those away or not encourage any of that congregation on campus. There are other questions as it relates to still having services operational on campus. And one of the challenges that we have is that our services are deemed, and it's not actually, I don't consider it a challenge. It's great to be considered essential as a service provider to the state. One of the challenges, though, that we face is that because of our mission in trying to address some of the community needs, whether it's through education or other capacities, we are here to provide some services. And so what I've been asking, and I've been working through your unit heads and my admin team, is that we can have what would be deemed more like a skeletal crew in some capacities. This is not applicable in all areas. There are some services that are really difficult to do remotely. But if they can be done remotely, we're working on rotating schedules and things like that, just to promote more of that remote service. It's going to discourage students from coming to campus if they could take advantage of things online, but also having an opportunity for the few that may need to be on campus, maybe through an appointment process or something like that, to still have that opportunity. And so we are asking, again, for the next 2 weeks that we downsize a little bit while maintaining some level of service. We can be a little bit creative, and I'll let that happen within your units. I'm not going to dictate that necessarily, but I do want us to be creative on how we can promote more of the work from home, learn from home, to contribute to the cause. And so it was difficult to have this Zoom call and even the message that I'm planning to send out, because our narrative hasn't changed. It's possible that in other campuses or other locations, there was a stronger impetus to have a very strong presence on campus for the fall. But excuse me, all along, we've been planning for something like this. And so we have most things already happening in a remote capacity. And so it's not a new message. It's just reiterating what we've been saying, which is that we want to promote more of this online thing. And so I don't have much more to say. If we have any questions or anything like that, I don't want to ignore the fact that we are a site for testing today, and that's both part within our mission and scope of being a state agency, and this being a partnership between state, city, and the federal government. These opportunities are going to bubble up on islands, especially here in Oahu, because of our spikes. I would love to say that we are really working well on beating the curve. I'm not saying that any of us are to blame for the spikes that we're seeing, but even today we had in the high 200s the number of positive cases. And so anything that we can do to contribute, and so we're doing 2 things. One of them, we are continuing to promote, at the very least for the next 2 weeks, some more push to remote services and instruction. And on the other side, as a community asset, we are a site for, I will get a real number. I don't have an updated number on how many people were being tested and coming through here. The good news is that even though traffic has been quite interesting getting in and out of campus, the management of the operations look well, in that folks are not getting out of their cars. It's moving, and we've sort of more or less isolated where the operations are happening. You may have noticed that there was an actual press release or press conference that happened a couple of minutes ago, right from Leeward. that serves us in many ways. And I just want to say that, you know, putting in our part includes some of these activities that may take us a little bit out of our comfort zone, and we recognize that. But again, as a state agency, we contribute to these causes whenever we're called to do so. And so I don't know if there are any other questions, and I'm going to have some folks maybe give me a nudge of sorts if there are. But again, I don't think any of this is new. I'm just asking again as a person, and not telling, but I'm asking if there are things that we can continue to push online while maintaining some level of service. You know, our community needs us more than ever. It's just really difficult to find ways of, you know, meeting down the middle. And so with that, if there are any questions, I'll entertain. And if not, I know we're all hyped up to go back to our, you know, classes or other tasks. I want to again thank everyone. I know everyone's been working, and more work will continue happening. And maybe your deans or your unit heads or your chairs are going to be reaching out if there are other things that we could probably do to contribute to the cause. I can tell you, and I was initially ashamed to, but I'm not ashamed to say this anymore. My kids since March have only left the house twice. And I think it's important because we all try to be as safe as we could possibly be in the reduction of the spread, and also to being as healthy as we can. But you know, we are still getting a lot of work done, and a lot of planning, and more to come. And so we are not closed. I see a question. We are not closed. Things are still open, but we are operating differently. And that was our narrative back in, I want to say March, April, where we are encouraging everyone to make an appointment and connect online in some capacity, rather than having folks come in. But we are still open. Classes that have a physical expectation can carry on. But I'm asking again to consider anything that we could do for the next 14 days to contribute to the cause. And so I'll be sending out a message shortly that basically rearticulates more or less what I just said, but probably in a nicer and more succinct way. And so thank you guys. I will. There's a question on how we are able to cut through traffic. I think that that we probably, getting out of campus may not be that difficult. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm sorry. I haven't tried it. But there's definitely HPD escorting people in and out that need to get in and out of campus. So for different units, the hours of operations can shift. And so I don't have, I'm not going to micromanage how all of that operates. There is still an expectation, and like we aren't able to, you know, serve everyone's very, you know, specific needs. Each unit is working with their unit heads and their deans to work out the hours. And so I don't actually know the full details of those. Anything else? Okay, so I thank you. I'm going to send out another message, and for what it's worth, I think that these calls do help every now and then. At least I feel relieved that I've been communicating. And so thank you all. Appreciate everything that you've been doing. It's been interesting, spring and now fall. And I'm really grateful for what everyone's been doing. So thank you.